the last shot of Force Awakens, you're obviously handing the saber to Mark Hamill,
Yeah.
Luke Skywalker, and I'm curious, when you picked that shot back up for The Last Jedi,
Yes.
talk about the continuity, having to recreate that. How long after did you shoot that?
Over a year.
Wow.
Yeah. And the first time, I was very sick. I'm not sure if you've heard this story, but I was like genuinely vomiting in a tent when we were like getting the shot ready and everything. And so I was like, a bit dazed and out of it. So picking it up anyway was so odd because that, you know, when you're poorly and time is like a bit odd. So I couldn't quite remember what we had done. And also, yeah, so much time had gone by. But also I think we picked it up before the first one had come out. So it was difficult.
Wow. And then did you find yourself wanting to look exactly the same, continuity-wise, the hair placement, the way you stood?
100%. But it is funny too. Just it's more, and it was more the feeling of it, because the first time round there was so much feeling in it, but then you don't know what's going to be picked. And Mark said, you know, he gave such a range of things that it's hard to know what was picked because we hadn't seen the finished product yet. So sort of trying to recreate that feeling for an extended moment, and then as opposed to the end, it was the beginning. It's a whole thing.
And there's so many fan theories, and I'm not going to sit here and ask you who Rey's parents are. I know you get that question all the time, but I'm genuinely curious though. At the beginning of Force Awakens, so you and John Boyega are both British actors. You have British accents. John went to an American accent in the film. You kept your British accent.
Yeah.
Do you talk about, was there a decision there? Is it a character choice why you have a British accent? Because there's theories about who your parents might be if you have a British accent.
Firstly, John's American accent is fantastic.
It's insane.
And mine, I think it could have been distracting if I was like, "Hey, Han Solo," and you know, did an awful American accent. I didn't decide that. No. So maybe I'm sure there's a reason. I'm sure there's a reason.
Well, I can't wait to find out.
Yeah.
Now, one of my favorite scenes in The Force Awakens was the scene when you did the Jedi mind trick on Daniel Craig's Stormtrooper character.
Yes.
We've heard Daniel Craig's version of that story. What happened on that day for you?
What was Daniel Craig's version?
Well, just he told it on the air that he was actually in the Stormtrooper costume.
Oh, he was sweating too.
Did you? So how did that all go down? Did you know he was going to be in that suit when you filmed that scene?
Yeah. Because you know because the helmet's really heavy and hot. So we had done blocking and everything with him out of the helmet, and I was like, this is hilarious. It was easier when he had the helmet on because I'm like, oh, then it's just Stormtrooper. And otherwise I was like, it's James Bond.
Does he actually speak during those scenes?
Yeah.
And then is it just his normal voice and then they change it digitally in post?
No, it was his normal voice. He was doing the thing. He was doing the line. And then in post, I think because of the muffling anyway, they would have had to
ADR it.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I find interesting, obviously the Carrie Fisher element of this film is incredible, the emotional connection to it. I cannot wait to see how Ryan handles the character. I'm just wondering, do you have a particular favorite memory of her on or off set that maybe just stays with you, of something that you just look back on and go, gosh, I really love that moment with Carrie?
I think when they released the behind the scenes thing for The Force Awakens, and there was a clip of me and her dancing, when I saw, I can't remember where it was, or if I was just told about it, but when, in this one, there's a thing of us singing. And so it was just not, like, that's the nice thing is between all of it, and we were just playing around.
Is that right? And I got you.
And the slate, please.
Kevin McCarthy of Washington, D.C., Kevin two-shot. Well, first of all, congratulations to you. And I'm very curious about the last shot of The Force Awakens that JJ shot.
Yeah.
And then you picking that back up exactly, getting the exact continuity, the exact lighting. How did you, was it hard to get that exact lighting and continuity down from the last TFA shot?
I mean, it was impossible because we were shooting on Skellig Michael, which is this island that we could only get to for a few days. And to be truthful, you know, they had overcast and the sun was blazing. So we did the best that we could, but you know, I think the emotion of the moment carrying through and figuring out what is the next thing that happens. I know for me, that's why there's no time gap between the two movies, is I wanted to see what happens next with that lightsaber being held out. You know?
Now, I know you were on Kimmel last night, and I asked JJ the same question when they did Force Awakens.
Yeah.
The first word was revealed, which was this, and then I asked him what the second word was, which was this is. Now, for your movie, it's "were" is the first word.
We're.
We're.
Like we are.
We're.
Yeah.
What is the second word?
So I've said this, but so I can say this: not.
Not.
Yeah, we're going dark.
We're going super dark.
It's not we're happy, it's we're not.
We're not.
Yes.
You know, obviously one thing I love about the footage I've seen so far, it just looks incredible. But red is a big theme to this film. And I'm curious about the color of red, what you want to portray with it. Obviously red is a very dark tone. But talk about the color of red using it as a leading character.
Yeah, during the design of it, it just started coming to the forefront, and there's a couple big sequences where red plays a really big part. I love the feel of it. I love how it's vibrant, it's alive, it feels kind of dangerous, and there's just something about it that felt right for this movie.
Now, 35mm, 65mm, I love that Star Wars is still shooting on that, which is amazing.
Yeah.
What scene, now in Force Awakens, it opened up during the Millennium Falcon scene when they fly for the first time. Is there a particular scene we're going to see in full 65mm, 70mm IMAX?
We did a couple, I mean, I can't say without giving anything away, but we did a couple of like some of the stuff in Ireland, we brought the IMAX cameras out there and were able to get some like big establishers and a couple other like big impact shots with it. So yeah.
And my favorite thing was the behind-the-scenes footage reel that they released for the movie, and just seeing Carrie Fisher. I was just curious, without like getting into specific storyline details, do you remember the first day you yelled action for one of her scenes?
Oh, for Carrie. Oh my goodness. You know what? I don't remember the first day of shooting. What I remember is before the first day I hung out with her, which was way before the shoot, and went over to her house, sat on her bed for like 4 hours with her, and just made jokes and like bad puns and just talked about and gossiped and talked about stuff. She was the force of nature, man. She was singular. Yeah.
Now, one of the things I love about behind the scenes of these movies is that there was a different name on set. I remember the chair said Space Bear.
Space Bear.
Is that something you created for the set? Like, can I ask what the significance of that was?
Yeah, it was during prep where they're like, we need a code name, and we had been, I forget what it was. We were like talking about like, I got into some corner where I didn't know how their heroes would get out of it. I'm like, and then a space bear comes in and kills everybody or something. And so we said, can we make it Space Bear? And then Rick Heinrichs, our production designer, designed this dumb little panda in a space helmet. And it just made me happy that on this big official production there was Space Bear on it.
That's awesome.
Made me happy.
Well, I'm super fascinated by how movie titles are when you're shooting them. I think this was called Space Bear when you guys were shooting the film. I saw some behind the scenes footage of you sitting in a chair that said Space Bear.
Yeah.
Is that what the script says as well?
No. No, did the script say Space Bear?
No, but it is very much a more accurate theme of the film.
Right.
Not only did it say Space Bear,
the bears are a big part of it.
but we all had bear names.
Oh.
Like Bear, yeah.
So what's Poe's bear name?
Pose was Smokey Bear.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And Laura, your characters?
Did you have a bear?
No, I had a bear. I don't even remember.
Donald was Paddington Bear.
That's awesome.
I think Adam was Grizzly Bear. Yeah.
What about Boyega? Do you have one?
What was his? I don't remember.
This is great.
It better not have been Brown Bear. I mean, it needed to be something.
I need to see this movie.
Mine was Latino Bear.
Oh, okay. I want to see Space Bear now. Now, one thing I've been watching Jurassic Park is one of my favorite movies of all time, and Spielberg was one of those filmmakers who would combine practical and CGI masterfully, and Ryan does the exact same thing here, where you have these real-life creatures on set doing things. I'm curious, can you compare and contrast what you saw on the Spielberg set at Jurassic Park, where you had this 10,000-pound T-Rex, and then here, where you have actual things that are working?
Yeah, well, that was the first CGI movie, Jurassic Park, so it was really a set of invention. And ILM was there literally figuring out the technology and how we were going to do it, Stan and Dennis Murin. And so it was extraordinary, but literally people were saying, well, maybe if you look, we'll put an X in the tree, and if you look up, it will kind of look as though you're seeing something, and then we can paint it onto it was, radical. So here we are in this refined era of everything at your fingertips, and instead of using it and relying on it as a storyteller, he focuses on the people. Yeah. And everything is at such an extraordinary level in terms of effects that it does blend beautifully. But I think the intimacy that he stays focused on in the story allows everything to be extraordinary, but also the environment, not the story.
Interesting.
And that's where I think he and Steven are very similar as filmmakers, because to them it's about the storytelling, not about the effects.
Now, there's a great moment in the behind-the-scenes footage, and it brought tears to my eyes, and you're hugging Carrie Fisher, and you kind of give her a kiss. It's one of my, I love that moment so much. I'm just wondering, what was happening on that day? Do you remember this specific moment?
Well, yeah, there was that was kind of the area in front of the trailers whenever you would drive in, and all the trailers are back there, and then you had the AD trailers in front, and we had a ping pong table where we were constantly playing. I was constantly beating Adam at ping pong at that table, and then we would, and then I that's where we'd kind of all pass by each other. It was kind of like the water cooler area, and yeah, whenever I would see Carrie and Billy on the on their little golf cart. And she'd always have a Coke with her, and I'd come over and bug her and kiss her. We would sing or do all sorts of stuff there. So that was just a lot of days were like that.
It's a beautiful moment. Yeah. And I'm wondering, I don't know how much you can give away about this, but I'm curious about your character's hair. It's fascinating, and I don't know if it's purple or pink. I'm just trying to figure out the color of it. But is there a storyline to why she has that particular hairstyle? I don't know much about your character yet, so
Yes, I think
Poe dyes her hair in the movie.
Oh, I know that. I mean, Ryan already told me.
Yeah,
dude, come on, man. Kathleen Kennedy's gonna come in here and kill us all.
God, Oscar, have they not taught you?
But seriously, is there a reason for the hair?
I think there is. I think that it speaks to who she is. Not directly, but it is very fitting. Her entire look is very fitting.
I'm excited.
To who she is, and it's just such a cool hair color.
It is. It's an awesome.
If you're going to be in Star Wars, have that color hair.
Yeah. I agree.
I think that's how the conversation started.
I can't wait to see Poe dye it in the movie. Well, nice to see you guys.
It's my favorite scene.
Congratulations. One thing I love about the Force Awakens is that scene when you're fighting with Luke's saber. And I'm just curious, now that we can talk about the Force Awakens, that moment, shooting that scene, what it felt like to have Luke's saber in your hand fighting. What did that feel like for you as an actor?
I think with Finn specifically is fun because he actually gets to do so much stuff. He gets to have a nice cool blaster, he gets to use the lightsaber, he gets to be in a stormtrooper suit, and I just feel like I just get the best of all worlds in this experience. Get to be at the gunner point on the Falcon, and it's just, it's fun. It's fun to have all those different things to do.
When you're shooting those scenes in the gunner point of the Falcon, though, just how does it look on set? Is it all green screen around you? Because it's so
so
cool.
funny. I mean, you're actually in the gunner position. It spins and all that kind of stuff. When you're looking out, there's a camera and just guys behind it like this. And you're just there having to, use your imagination. But there's a nostalgia to it as well. There's lights, there's smoke, there's action. You just imagine, you just become a child.
Now, one thing I found interesting, and there's a lot of fan theories online about who Rey's parents are, and I think it's interesting to look at the accents that some of the actors have in these films. You and Daisy are both British actors. You went American for the movie. She kept her British accent, which is a little interesting thing to think about because I wonder who her parents might be. But I'm curious, when you initially got the role, was the American accent part of the character? Was that your decision? Did JJ want you to be an American accent?
I think in general that's something that came from up top, that they would try to do it as British and to do him as American, but I think that also broadens the amount of actors that you can see for an audition. But I don't think that those two worlds mesh into the narrative because to act means to be somebody else, not yourself.
Sure.
So.
It's just interesting because Obi-Wan had a British accent.
I think the fans should move on from that one. Guys, trust me, I've got your back. Move on from that one. But one that I told you to be specific about, I'll let you know.
Now, I'm a huge Attack the Block fan. Brilliant film, great movie. I'm wondering, just that particular set versus a Star Wars set. I know the budget's obviously more extreme, but can you talk about what that movie taught you about being an actor and what you still utilize from Attack the Block on a movie like this?
I think it was just my first. It was my first film, and it definitely reminds me of staying appreciative. As sometimes when you get into this position, they feel like the only emotion you have access to is being thankful and gracious, and you're still a human being. And thinking to my experiences on Attack the Block, it gives me some form of comfort in how far I've come. So yeah, I learned a lot on that experience.
And last question, the sabers on set, they're actually physically there.
Heavy.
Now, is it lighting up? Because your faces illuminate. Can you talk about what those feel like? I remember JJ showed me a photo of what it looked like on set. I know they add digital effects to it, but what does it look like when you're holding it?
Well, Dan Mindel, who's a genius when it comes to lighting the actors, he knows exactly what to do. And anytime you can use a prop to make sure the audience reads the characters and to also give the scenery a dramatic effect is the best you can do. And those lights, it represents something to us. We see the blue, we know what's going on. We see the red, we know what time it is. And I like that.
Well, first of all, congratulations to you. I know you can't really say a lot, but I'm curious what you can tell me about your character. I know it's kind of a cliche question to ask, but what can you tell me about your character so far?
So my character's name is Rose Tico. She's part of the Resistance. She also has a sister named Paige, who's part of the Resistance. Paige is a gunner, so she trains with Poe and fights with Poe a lot. And Rose is a maintenance worker. She works behind pipes all day. She's someone who's in the background and someone who isn't necessarily in the forefront of the action. But in this film, you'll see her get pulled into that.
I'm geeking out. I can't wait. And
I know.
I do. Now, have you seen the film?
I just saw it last night.
What?
With the whole cast.
Can you give me a reaction?
Oh my God. I mean, I'm still so shocked by the whole thing. It's very weird to watch yourself on a screen like that. But watching everyone else, like Daisy and Mark and Adam and John and Gwen and Laura and Oscar, every single person is phenomenal in this movie. Andy Serkis is great. Every character has something they're dealing with. It's just like incredible. I know. I introduced myself to him, and I was like, "This is such a big moment," because I love everything he does. I love Lord of the Rings.
Me too. Why are we best friends?
I know!
I feel like we have the same things in common. Now, I do want to ask you, I don't know if you can go into specifics. What was the first day on set for you?
Yeah.
Can you give me like an idea of what you shot, maybe?
Yeah. I actually think I can tell you this because it was in the trailer.
Oh.
Or not in the trailer. It was in like one of those
the behind-the-scenes footage.
Videos. Yeah. So it was that scene. There's a scene with me and Oscar and John. I remember walking onto that set. First of all, I remember being in my like costume and in my makeup and just being like, this is so weird. And I was quiet, and I remember feeling like I was about to play in the Super Bowl. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like your senses are so heightened. Like everything is just like you're an animal, and suddenly you're gonna be chased by a wolf or something, and everything is so heightened, and you just want to like experience everything, and you're just like looking around, and I remember walking onto that set and seeing Finn and seeing Poe and just being like, I don't get what's happening.
You know, one thing I love about Star Wars films, well, one, that they shoot on film, which is amazing, 35 and 65, but also the idea that Ryan and JJ use a lot of practical effects and things on set. I'm just curious, was there something particularly that you nerded out about, like seeing practically, like was it a porg, or what were the things that you were seeing on set that you were geeking out about?
I mean, I love the porgs.
Yeah, everyone loves the porgs.
I also love the crystal foxes.
Yes, that thing is so cool looking.
It's beautiful.
Was it real on set? Was it practical?
They had models of it. Yeah, which was incredible. I mean, the creatures department on this film is incredible. And there are other creatures too that I don't know that we can discuss now, but you'll see in the movie. They're just a lot, like you said, you're walking onto these sets and there are these creatures that are being controlled by people. And so they're actually moving and you're actually interacting with them. I can tell you in particular that I had this moment with one of the creatures in the movie, and I full on like cried when they weren't covering me. Like they were like covering the other thing, and I was like, oh my God, I'm crying because they're so real.
Yeah.
To do for the day.
Dude, they have an R2-D2 one. They have a Vader one now. This is the old model version of it, but I just saw Hamill in the hall. I was like, he's like, that's a good way to get out of jury duty to wear that. It's really. I have a question I've been wanting to ask you since The Force Awakens. When you do the scenes with Kylo Ren and you're looking up at Snoke as the hologram, are you physically on set doing your motion capture? So where are you on a huge chair? How does that look?
I was on a 25-foot kind of throne thing, wasn't I, when we shot The Force Awakens? It was quite weird because it was very bizarre being separated from your fellow actors who are down there so far away. It was like doing some kind of weird piece of site-specific theatre, wasn't it? It was sort of.
It was, but it was amazing because they also had your voice coming through a speaker.
That's
because
right.
You didn't want to have to shout because that would lose some power or whatever. You were still able to talk very quietly, but the voice was booming, and it was like, this is proper. It was really amazing. It was really amazing.
That's
actually,
really cool. Now, one thing I love about your character, well, in the initial one, we don't see your face, but in the Vanity Fair piece, there's a great picture of you holding the mask. We actually see your face in the actual suit. I'm curious, are we gonna get to see your face in this particular film? Is that something they're going to keep in the mask?
If I were to answer that question, I'd have to kidnap you.
That's okay.
And everyone else in this room. And I don't have enough space.
Okay. Well, just take me. It's fine. My wife will be fine with it. Just take me. No, but I am curious though about like doing the voice work in that suit. Do you have to project differently? Are you actually delivering the dialogue as we're hearing it in the film, or do you have to redo it in ADR?
No, it is delivered there and then. And there's something very interesting about the real practicalities of someone choosing to dress in that way, and therefore how it would affect your voice, and also leading troops. You're not having a sort of casual conversation, so it does change the dynamic. When you're in a huge room as well, there's something about having to communicate commands, which is interesting.
Now, you have an amazing scene in The Force Awakens specifically, which I can talk about because that movie's been out for a couple of years now, but where you're delivering that speech to the crowd of stormtroopers, it's an amazing scene. And I'm wondering, when you do a scene that deeply, he's just a mean person, it seems like at times. I'm curious, like, do you find yourself, like, when the camera cuts, is it hard to go back? Because you're like the nicest guy on the planet.
Thanks. No, it was exciting. I think he's excited. I think he's scared of anything that's different, you know?
Yeah.
Like, so he just wants to get rid of it so the galaxy makes more sense. Like, I think all those things, you just have to find the reason that he's like that, you know? And he's also fighting for his position in things, you know?
Yeah.
Like, he's young enough for his position, so I think he's just desperately trying to hang on to it. So, no, it was easy to get there, and that was JJ, and he was just really good about getting different sizes of it and going smaller and bigger and then deciding later. It was, but also they had so many stormtroopers there, you really felt like you had to get it out there. It was amazing.
Now, we don't know the actual size of Snoke yet. We've seen him in that hologram.
Well, have you not seen the toy?
I've seen the toy, but that's the toy. Do we know how big he's going to be?
Like that big?
But do we know his literal size yet? I mean, is that given away with the toy?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. He's not that big. He's actually about 7 or 8 feet tall.
Okay,
or
so
9.
are you on stilts if he's walking?
It's we did actually shoot some versions with stilts. Yeah, we did. Yeah.